Welcome everyone to our very first Fireside chat with the Dean, in which we explore stories of leadership and the idea that potential is truly unlimited. I'm your host, Professor Hind Benbya. I'm the Dean of the Business School here at WSU, and today I'm joined by someone whose entrepreneurship journey has really changed the Australian business landscape, Charlie Shahin. Charlie, welcome.
Thank you.
It's great to have you. What does it take to build one of Australia's largest private companies?
I think determination is the first thing. I think there are over 50,000 small businesses that make the journey, the journey from small to medium. And with all due respect to all of them, I think everyone has limitations, everyone has expectations. The first and foremost, I would say, is you need to have a pathway and you need to have the willingness to put through the hard yards, and you must stay determined. If you don't have determination, nothing happens on its own. I think that once you're determined that you are going to embark on a journey, and you know what the journey is, the road becomes much more easier to navigate.
All right, so determination is one of the key ingredients. And you have expanded in so many different industries, from total sports to agriculture, retail, and many more. How do you decide which opportunities to pursue?
I think once you've worked out the field of expertise, obviously we didn't have our company, did not have the level of expertise required in every one of these fields. So you start off, I think the first thing to identify is, what are your points of strength? What is what is it that I'm most capable at? And then you build capability from there. Retail, we started off in gifts retailing, then went on to become quite large fuel retailers, food retailers, and then expanded into Subway, Krispy Kreme, GYG, and the list goes on. But I think if you're not sure if you're not certain that you are going to do a better job than your competitor, then it's quite likely you'll fail. The most determining factor is to make sure that you are able to or willing to go down the journey of, and the objective is that I am going to do a better job than every one of my competitors. If you're unable to do that, then you are not going to grow market share. And that applies in agriculture, or it applies in food, in retailing, and so on and so forth. We're into farming, and the same thing. It's about that unit costs. And the model is universal. And to succeed in agriculture, whether you're doing it here or in the US or in Europe, we're all limited by our input costs predominantly. Our output costs generally are also variables. Obviously, tariffs will change things for the world, but saving that, the biggest challenge has to be from on. Because if you're just going to copy someone else's model, and then you are going to be always delivering an inferior model and get an inferior outcome, whether that's in sales, whether that's in opportunities, growth, profits, staff retention. Your staff want to work for number one, unless you want to be number one. If you want to be number one, then your staff would want to work for number one too. So that is a key determination in determining that, yes. And if you shy away, in our case, there's obviously myself and my brothers. In our case, I think one of our biggest strengths is knowing what we are good at and what we are likely to be good at, rather than try a hand at things that we knew that we were unlikely to beat our competition. That's not to say we didn't have failures. We've had many failures, unfortunately. But it's part of, for us, this was part of the journey, part of the lesson. There were lessons, there weren't failures. That's how my view is. It's experience. there's no such thing as a failure. It's just an experience.
All right. So I think determining the key strength, but also determining that difference that makes a distinction to the competition. But how do you define that sweet spot between proposing something which is new, that probably haven't been tested in the market, and differentiating yourself from the competition?
So obviously a lot of market research goes into each individual. So, if, and I'll just use an example, when if we were going to put an offer X, and whether that is a bakery or a food offer or a service station or whatever the case might be, it's you understand, you've got to understand your customer. Is there a market? Is there a market for this product? Is the timing correct? Can I control my costs? Do I have an input? No one realizes, but Subway came to Australia, and they probably hate me for saying this now, but Subway came to Australia in the early 80s, and it was a failure. And it closed down and went back to the US, and everyone said, no, it's a terrible idea. And then there was another chain called Quiznos, which came to Australia, and that was also a failure, and then again closed down and went back to the US. Now you fast forward 40 years, and Subway became, and we hosted the founder in South Australia 5 years ago before COVID, and 5,000 stores later, fast forward 40 years, 5,000 stores or more. Even in Australia, the success of Subway has been phenomenal, and the guys have done an amazing job. But when they came 40 years ago, at the initial go, the timing wasn't right, the customer wasn't ready, the offering wasn't right. And again, you've got to understand your customer, and the time has got to be right. And there are plenty of examples that were successful and did not keep up. Unfortunately, chains like Baker's Delight, if you look at, they were in the hype, there were 300 Baker's, almost 270 Baker's Delight stores. It's very sad what happened, but that's part of the journey. Wendy's and so on and so forth. So there's plenty of evidence where consumer behavior has changed, consumer expectations has changed, and the retail offering didn't change. And that's the same. You can talk, and we're in the construction industry as well. Look at what the construction industry builds now and what the offering today is compared to what the offering was 40 years ago. And that has been driven predominantly by what the customer wants.
Mm-hmm. Can you share a moment in which a bold move paid off in unexpected ways?
I think as always, it might have to go back to about 2010 when Mobil decided to exit Australia. There was Mobil decided to exit Australia. We were able to buy the Mobil assets in South Australia at that time. That was a largest acquisition at that time. That doubled our size. It was a bold move because it's daunting when you embark on an acquisition that's going to double your size. Generally, organizations grow by organic, and when you acquire, your target is generally 10-20% of your size. To acquire something that's 100% of your size is daunting, and was daunting. But thank God it paid off very well, and it gave us confidence as well. That says, we could do this. So in 2014, when BP decided to exit, we were ready, willing, and able to also buy out their assets in South Australia. So that was a small step into what then became, and we were able to replicate that in years to come.
So learning from it and then scaling and replicating.
Absolutely.
Can you share what differentiates entrepreneurs who succeed from the ones who fail? So there are so many entrepreneurs who fail. What makes the difference from your perspective?
There are many, 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 many smart entrepreneurs who fail at no fault of theirs, but I think it is one thing to have a great idea. Execution and commercialization of that idea is a whole different perspective. running a business is, as I said, unfortunately, we've had many failings, and I was responsible for many of them, unfortunately. But that's a fact. The fact is that I was responsible for many of those failings. But you learn from those failings. That's the most important part. You need to go back and have an honest look at why, and we have a culture. We're fortunate that all of our management team, all of our team understood that we do not accept, and we never ever do we have a blame culture. I think if you have a blame culture, you restrict your managers from reflecting, you restrict your managers from taking risks, you restrict your managers, and if that's who you are, I think you, in turn, if you're concerned someone's going to blame you for the failure, you won't take risks and you won't make informed decisions. So the biggest difference I would say is someone who is prepared to learn from the last failing, accept that that was a mistake, dust up, and just go, okay, that's fine. Let's have another go, rather than blame, because there's always someone to blame, and sometimes there are reasons to blame others. But accept that failure is part of the journey.
So, what advice would you give to young entrepreneurs who feel somehow limited by their circumstances, or they want to turn their difference, whether it is cultural or any other kind of difference, into a strategic advantage?
I don't think that anyone should consider a cultural difference as a disadvantage. Um, um, I think, as I said, if anyone adopts has a blame mentality, they're just, in my view, they won't succeed. First and foremost, you can turn that into an advantage. Consider Alibaba. There's an example of, and there are tens of examples where cultural differences have been turned into an advantage. There are no shortage of opportunities that you can turn the cultural difference into a point of difference. Australia, particularly in Australia, in my view, a country that has been built on migrants, by migrants, Australia is so wonderful and so great is because it is so, not just the multiculturally successful, it has allowed all of us to bring in that element of difference, that point of difference, and succeed. You can, everything, whether you decide to open whatever you've seen back home, whether it's a medical institution, to a retail institution, to a teaching institution, the country, thank God, allows us to do and exercise those pointed differences and transfer and translate those pointed differences, which might be seen as cultural differences, into a pointed difference that says that people want to explore. So I think turn that difference into an advantage, and I think you'll succeed. And if you think that I'm different and hence I'm not going to succeed, is you need to get rid of that mindset. Those two aren't going to work. We're fortunate in that we have an environment in Australia that promotes points of difference, that encourages lateral thinking, that encourages risk taking. I'd say take risks, calculated risks, understand your cultural difference, turn that into a point of difference, and keep me posted. I'll come and check it out.
All right. What's next for you?
So I've bought a station because I love agriculture, and I have 2 degrees in agriculture. And I think I'm blessed with 4 daughters who want to take a big part of the family office at different times. Philanthropy is a very big. We're involved in local and global philanthropy, and we giving back to Australia first and foremost, local communities, local disadvantaged groups, and global philanthropy is next. And we've started, and thank God things are going really well. And it's one of the most rewarding activities that our family office undertakes now. So we're very grateful to be able, and we're grateful for the environment that allows us to do so as well.
Shahin, thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.